Welcome to the Childcare Director's Chair, the podcast for bold educators who are ready to lead, grow, and shake things up in early childhood education. Whether you're a teacher eyeing that lead role, a lead stepping into leadership, or a center owner dreaming big, this is your space to grow with purpose and leave your mark. Hosted by heart-centered leadership coach Erica Saccoccio, each episode brings you real talk, actionable tools, and a contagious laugh or two, all designed to help you step into your next level with confidence. So pour your coffee, pop in those earbuds, and take your seat, because your leadership journey starts right now in the Childcare Director's Chair.
We're so excited that you are here today. I am so excited to talk with our guest today, but I'm gonna wait a minute before I even unveil that. We're gonna talk about leadership today, culture, and growing leaders. What if the greatest thing that you could do for your program wasn't creating another policy, buying another curriculum, or even attending another training? What if it was becoming the leader that your team actually needs? You know, leadership isn't about having all the answers, but it is about finding your confidence, using your voice when it matters most, and building a culture that people don't want to leave, and creating more leaders, not more followers. Today, I am joined by a fellow director who is doing exactly that. We're talking about the real side of leadership, the wins, the mistakes, and the difficult conversations, and the moments that shape us to become who we are as leaders. So grab your coffee and settle in. You are ready to tune into the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I want to do something I've never done before. Normally, I don't spend a lot of time reading guest bios because I want our conversation to just naturally unfold. But today's a little different. You know, I absolutely love bringing in thought leaders from across the country, authors, keynote speakers, researchers, and industry experts. But if I'm being honest, my favorite episodes are the ones where I get to sit down with real centered directors who are doing the work every single day. The leaders who are opening the doors every morning, supporting teachers, welcoming families, solving problems, and growing enrollment, and making hundreds of decisions before lunchtime. Those are the voices that remind us that we're not alone. And that's what makes today's episode even more special. Today's guest isn't just an incredible director, she's also a longtime listener of the Childcare Director's Chair podcast and our YouTube channel, and I just love when our community comes full circle. So let me introduce you to Annie Watkins. Annie never planned on a career in early childhood education. It found her. When her youngest daughter was born, she took a job as an hourly play care center at an hourly play care center simply because it offered free childcare during her shift. So what started as just a job for now quickly became something much bigger. About a year later, someone saw leadership potential in Annie, and before she knew it, she saw herself. She was recruited to go into a small preschool program. They personally mentored her and encouraged her to pursue her first director certification. Sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in us before we're ready to believe in ourselves. So fast forward 11 years, and Annie has worn just about every hat imaginable, from a pre-K teacher to jumping into whatever classroom is needed, gosh knows we all do that, to serving as an assistant director and now as a director of the learning experience in Texas. She's led through challenges through COVID, navigated change, built teams, supported families, and understands firsthand that directing a childcare program means being a marketer, a coach, a recruiter, a trainer, a problem solver, a relationship builder, and yes, sometimes even the best storyteller in the building with a cast of unforgettable character voices. So hello, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So tell folks a little bit about yourself outside of childcare. Who is Annie?
Well, outside of childcare, I am a wife and a mom of two. We live in a small town in North Texas. I was actually born and raised on a cattle farm in North Texas in a town that no one even knows exists. And, just met my husband 13 years ago. And we just try to focus on having fun and supporting each other the best we can.
I love that. So is he a cattle farm? Is he like, what does he do? Is he with the
He's
cattle?
definitely not. No. He's definitely a city boy. He actually grew up in near Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So
Okay.
opposite.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So Annie, you've been in this field a really long time. What has been the secret to keeping you passionate about this work after all these years?
I mean, I don't know if there's necessarily just a secret. I mean, are there days where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this day might be the last day, it happens, but I don't know. I kind of just make sure that I surround myself by the positive people that can kind of recenter me whenever I'm having those days. They'll let me get it out, and then we can actually have like a conversation of, well, how do we move forward from this? What do we need to do? Maybe this is something that a new policy or procedure that we can put in place to avoid this in the future. Or, you know what, it happened, but this is how we're going to deal with it, and we're going to move forward. It's kind of who you surround yourself with, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think having support is extremely important when you are a childcare director. Find a mentor, find a friend, find a coach, find something, a good book, a good podcast, but find something, somewhere you can turn to when you're frustrated. And I mean, let's face it, we've all had those days of, is this the last day? Because honestly, I had one of those days not too long ago. So yeah, it happens to the best of us. So one thing that I love about talking about on the podcast is confidence, because I don't believe we're born with confidence. I think confidence is something that is kind of learned over time. So my question to you is, when did you finally feel confident enough to call yourself a leader?
That's a really good question. I think it was probably whenever I was first kind of stepping into childcare. I had always been that person that like anybody kind of comes to like, hey, we're having a crisis. What do we do? And I'm just like, you know what? Let's just go. Don't think, let's just act, and I'm in there and fixing it. Whenever I first started working at the very first preschool and actually having someone else see what I was kind of feeling on the inside kind of really reiterated the confidence that I thought I was having, because she was like, you know what, you're doing great. I see this potential, having those kind of conversations with me, and then mentoring me, asking questions of, where else do you want to grow? What do you feel is your weakness? How can I support you? And kind of fostering that in me. That's kind of where I started gaining the confidence, because I was like, well, maybe I can do this. Maybe this isn't so far-fetched, because someone else outside sees what I'm thinking on the inside.
Yeah, I think that is such an important point, because we don't, as leaders right now you're that leader. And as leaders, I don't think we always think about the impact that we have on other people and how much we really can change their life. And sometimes for the positive, like in your example, and sometimes in the negative. And I can think about many, many mentors as I was coming up through the ranks that had effects on me. And I can also think of some unfortunate colleagues in the field who had negative impacts on me as well. So it's really important that we really be mindful of, what we're saying, what we're doing. And sometimes it's not even intentional. Sometimes we just kind of are so busy in putting out fires that we might miss that opportunity to see someone spark and invest in that. And that person may leave our field when they could have been really one of the ones that game changed the field. So I think it's so important that we're really, really intentional about the ripples that we are making in the field. Was there maybe a defining moment that you can think of, or something that really, really boosted your confidence? Was there like one day, I know it's built over time, but is there one thing in particular you can really think of that was a huge confidence builder?
I mean, the only thing that's kind of come into my mind right now, especially after you mentioned, no matter, it could be a positive influence or, a negative interaction that you had that kind of boosts you and push you. Cause I'm pretty competitive, I'm the person where they're like, well, you can't. And I'm like, watch me. I'm going to at least try, I'm going to at least try, So there was in early on after I had left that initial center, after, she had, guided me through the director's certificate and everything. I knew that I wasn't going to jump straight from, pre-K teacher to director.
Mhm.
So I had gotten a position as an assistant director at a franchise and was working underneath the center director. And there was a lot of really good qualities that she had. Like she was not afraid of those scary conversations or like the confrontational ones. She was really good at having those. And that was something that I was still learning to do. So I paid very close attentions to those. But after working with her for a couple of years, I told her, I'm really thinking about leaving or, maybe even going to another center because obviously you're the director here. I would want to, move forward and continue to grow. And her response is she just looked at me and said, but do you really think that you're ready for that? And it was the tone. Like I can still hear it in my head.
Mhm.
Like as I'm talking about it, I can just hear the negativity. And I just looked at her and I was like, absolutely. And so that kind of like kicked it into gear.
Oh my God, I love. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I have to say that when I first came into this field, and I kind of came in like you, like I had my daughter, I was not in the field of anything to do with education. I was in sales. I sell water beds. And when I came into the field, I thought, all right, well, again, coming from the sales world, right? Competitive, you think. I came into ECE. I thought it was going to be unicorns and rainbows and nice, warm people. No, there is a lot of that negative aspect in ECE, especially when it comes to that. I don't know, something weird happens when you have lots of women in the same area. So this, you have to be around women who build you up, not break you down. I remember there was this group of girls who said I was a brown noser because I would constantly fix the bookshelves. This is how minutia is. I was fixing the bookshelves and I would always straighten out the floor, but I came from retail. And so I was very trained on aesthetics of a space. And so they thought I was, trying to kiss the boss's behind, but I wasn't. I just was doing what I knew to do and using skills that I had brought in prior to coming into early childhood education. But yeah, sometimes, you have people who are like, who does she think she is? Or, you're never going to make it. So yeah, sometimes you have to just tell those voices like goodbye and have confidence in yourself. And you'll make some mistakes, right? We all make mistakes. But I think I'm always more scared to not take a risk than fail. I'm more scared of that, to not move forward, to not grow.
Right. Yeah. Because then you're always going to be thinking, well, what if I had at least tried it? What happened if it worked correctly? Where could I have been? And I don't like the what ifs.
Yeah. So I also think one of the hardest parts of leadership is learning to use our voice, like you said earlier. And it's not just celebrating wins, but like speaking up when something isn't right, or advocating for children, or supporting teachers, or having difficult conversations, right? So can you share maybe a difficult conversation that ultimately made you a stronger leader?
Absolutely. So I know there was someone that I had worked with. I brought her on. She had applied at one of the schools that I was working at. She had no experience. She was coming from a background of retail and healthcare, which I also had too, because again, with retail, there's a lot of skills that you can use to put into the, childcare and healthcare as well. So we talked and I could kind of see that passion whenever she was talking about kids and, because she didn't have any of her own. And so like everybody else's kid was like her kid, and I always tell everyone, even if I'm in an interview with someone, because they're like, yeah, I don't have any experience, but that I don't care. Because sometimes your best people that you're hiring are the people who have zero experience, like us, who came from nothing. Because I can't teach you how to love and how to be a good person and be caring. I can only teach you the rules, the regulations, and things like that. So if you don't have that character to begin with, I can't go anywhere with that. So I worked really hard with her kind of one-on-one. I was doing, of course we did onboarding and training, and I ended up working with her for multiple years. She moved up, we started working with leadership. I would kind of sit one-on-one with those difficult conversations that she wanted to have with other people. Like, sure, I'll be there, but I'm going to let you do it. And I'm just here for support. I can chime in, if I need to, and just kind of be there kind of as support. I can guide you. I'm not going to give you the answers, but I'll be there to steer you in the right direction. And so that's kind of what I do with the employees or teachers, that I can kind of see that they have that potential, they have that drive, they have that passion to move forward. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be pushing you and kind of guiding you on the way, but I'm not going to give you the answers. I'll help you figure it out yourself.
Yeah. I also, the other thing I love about giving people a shot is you don't have to untrain them with bad habits that they may have picked up somewhere else. So I do love a clean slate. You are not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You offered so much. Yeah, you offered so much great wisdom there. How do you prepare yourself for difficult conversations? Because, sometimes we know we have to have them. Sometimes they just come spontaneous, but sometimes we know we have to have a difficult conversation, whether it's teachers' actions, or maybe having to talk to a parent about, possibly their child maybe needing to be screened because there might be some red flags. How do you prepare yourself for having difficult conversations?
So especially as someone who used to be petrified of these conversations, of course you're not always able to prepare ahead of time, but if I am, I try to have as much as I can. I'm, interviewing the teachers. I'm doing classroom observations if that's, if we're talking about like the child, or doing classroom observations on the teacher if that's who I'm talking to. Doing observations, getting all of the documentation that maybe we have to support what we're talking about. And even like if it is maybe this child needs to be referred or, something like that, finding some sources that are locally, or if I know anything specific about the family that maybe they're on like subsidy, like what people do I have in my pocket that I can refer them to that accept subsidies and things like that. So that a way it's like, here is what I'm seeing, but I'm also going to try to help you find the solution. I'm not just going to kick you out and be like, there you go, good luck. I'm at least going to try to do that. So if I can, I try to prepare in that way. And so that a way it kind of sets me up for success, but then it also gives whoever I'm talking to a little bit of a start on finding the solution in whatever topic it is.
Yeah. I feel like I've learned that the conversation that we avoid today, it usually becomes a bigger problem tomorrow. Or those conversations that you should have and you keep avoiding, they don't go away usually. So, it's better to have them before they really fester. So let's talk a little bit about building a positive culture. Culture has become one of those leadership buzzwords, but building a positive culture takes intentionality and hard work every single day. So how do you build a strong work culture?
I think it kind of all starts with, just making sure that all of your staff kind of see you. And that means, to me, that means a couple of different things. So they want to see you everywhere. They want to see you stepping in. They want to see you being supportive. They want to see you, doing the work, but they also want to see you holding themselves and each other accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to see all of that. So that's kind of where it starts, because I've worked in places where you may have a good team, but then the leader is not being visible in the way that they need to be, or at all. And it kind of trickles down, and that can affect it too. So I try to make sure that I'm there. I listen. Sometimes it's not even anything that I'm talking to them about. It's just them, talking to me or bringing issues to me. But then also, celebrating those wins, no matter how small, because like whenever you're taking over a new center that's been kind of like in survival mode, there's a lot of positive things that need to happen there. You've got to celebrate every single win to show them you can do this. It's not going to be this hard forever.
Yeah. And I think too, going back to what you said, the accountability piece, because if leadership hasn't been around there for a while, that means people are making up their own stuff, doing whatever they want. Kind of a lot of things slide. So I think, I think it's a delicate balance for sure. And the other thing I think is really important too to kind of address, because this is something that I think about a lot. Leadership can really kind of set the tone for sure, but the culture is the people, right? A building is just a building. The culture is the people. You can have the most dedicated leadership, but if you got two or three, and this is why they say you got to weed the garden, you have two or three bad apples in the pot, gossiping, not treating people nice, like you're wondering why your new people are leaving, but you find out that your seasoned teachers are, kind of like that, they're not going to make it, right? Like you and I encountered. Who's this new person think they are, right? So I think it's really important that we stay in tune with how the whole team is feeling. And sometimes it's that teacher that the parents really love, that is the one that seems like they can get away with the most because they feel like they have you hostage because they know the parents love them. They're the ones who come in late and the ones that don't wear their uniform and, don't always follow the rules. So what happens to the culture if that person gets to keep sliding?
Right. Yeah. It affects it because, you try to hold other people accountable for, whatever it is, like you said, the uniform arriving on time and everything like that. And they are watching and, they're like, well, they get to do, X, Y, Z all the time. It's what I call the strawberry theory. When you buy a pack of strawberries, if one of them is bad, all the ones that touching it are going to eventually start to turn that way too.
Yeah.
And it's the same with teachers, you're right. You bring these new people in and you have such high hopes and, you're like, yes, this is going to be great. And then they leave and you're like, wait, what happened? And it's because, that one strawberry is, affecting everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your best advice to protect the culture when someone isn't aligned with your vision? What do you do?
So I think it kind of starts with maybe having those conversations with that person, that specific person, and just let them know, especially like, if because I've had these conversations before where you're taking over a new center and, they've been running it how they've been wanting to run it. And so now you're trying to kind of bring everything back up to standard and, grow from there. So the first thing is kind of maybe having one-on-ones with every single staff member and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying. Is it going to be fun? No, but this is what we're going to work towards. So these are maybe even have like a little list or something for them to look at. These are the things that I've seen just kind of across the board. These are the things that we're going to be working on. And this is the reason why we're going to do these, because the why for me is huge. It's never just, hey, go do this, or I need you to, It's, I need you to do this because of this. And so if you give them the reasons why you're working on these things and then give them the why, have those conversations with them one-on-one, you're setting the tone from the start. And so that way, if you aren't seeing the improvements that you're wanting to, then you can bring them back in and be like, okay, talk to me. We set the expectations on whatever date this was. And, I've been kind of watching, maybe you're doing great on these things, but then I'm noticing that we're still not, performing like we're supposed to in these areas. So how can I help you the best? And, kind of working with those conversations, even if it's just not formal, after that of coming into the office, maybe dropping in the classroom like, hey, I saw that you got your boards changed on time, or I saw that your lesson plans were posted. Good job. And just kind of doing those little day-to-day things can help. But once after a certain point, if there's no growth there, then you need to start having a conversation of, maybe this center and maybe my methods aren't a good fit for you. And, maybe we just need to re-gift them to the employment pool at that point, because there's always a center for everyone. And it just might not be this center.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very, very true, because you do need to find the right work culture for your thoughts, your philosophy, your teaching methods, your core values. Like, so just like there is no program that's the right fit for every family, it's the same for us as employees, employers. It is the same for us. So thank you. That is Great leadership tips there. One of my favorite leadership quotes is that great leaders don't create followers, they create leaders. So let's talk about, how do you intentionally develop leadership within your team?
So with employees, I kind of try to see what they are most passionate about, because that's where you can kind of build them, because maybe they don't want to lead in certain areas, and then they have certain strengths that they can have. And so you can kind of help them focus on that. Like, I have some teachers who are, I have one teacher specifically, my pre-K teacher right now, and she is the most like positive. Like, we go in there every Friday with something for the teachers. Like, this Friday we did like an ice cream bar. Sometimes it's just simple, like a little bags of chocolates that says, like, you guys are sweet, just something. But every time she's like, oh my God, and she's just so positive. And like, as soon as we're going to her classroom, I'm like, oh yes, this is about to be so much fun, because she just brings that happiness. She is so passionate. She's a happy soul. And so we've started to talk to her about being our one of like our leaders in our culture crew. And so, she's doing things like that where I'm like, hey, keep an eye. If you see teachers in passing or, something like that, and they're doing great, here's these little cards, and you can fill those out to shout them out, even just privately, just like leave it in their classroom. And so that way they know that something was seen, or if something is just especially amazing, then, you can bring it to me, and then we can, maybe shout her out at the staff meeting, or, something like that. So there's different ways that you can be leaders in whatever your strengths are. Like, some of my teachers are really, really good at doing like the revamping of the classroom decorations for the different themes of the months and things like that. And so then I will let them go into the other classrooms and help. Or if they have questions, I'm like, well, who you should ask. You should go ask her, because she's great. And then I can help and, kind of support them from there. So whatever like skill or thing that they're passionate about like that, I try to help them kind of steer that way, because, maybe this teacher eventually wants to be like a curriculum coordinator and, something like that, because her passion is curriculum. Or maybe this other teacher wants to be, our director in HR, because she's, such a people person, and teach everybody about culture and how to foster that, because that's what she's passionate about. So you have to know your staff really well and be able to help steer them in that direction and give them the resources that they need if you can.
Yeah, I love that. Talk to me about the culture crew. What is that? Give us a little more. I love the sound of it. I want to hear more.
Yeah. So it's certain people that are designed in our center that we have recognized, like her, that, she's really great at, bringing that positivity and that fun. Or, maybe there's another teacher that is really good at dealing with helping people like walk through, challenging conversations or challenging moments. Like, maybe there's certain teachers who are really good with dealing with those very energetic or, those challenging students. And then maybe they can help give advice. Maybe we're at a staff meeting and we give them a chance to talk or something like that. But there's certain people in the center that they're even going to wear like special lanyards for their ID badges and everything, that are our culture crew. And so they have different skills. They have different topics that they can kind of go on, but they're all about raising morality in the center and lifting each other up, because we're not always there to see everything between running the front office and doing outreach marketing and things like that. I'm not in the classroom all the time, so your co-teacher might be able to come to me and tell me the great things that you've said or done, or someone maybe just walking by your classroom and saw, a really wonderful storytelling happening during your circle time and wanted to shout that out. And so they are encouraged to, kind of lift each other up from within and let us know also, so that way we can help them, encourage them. So it's all just about supporting each other and lifting each other up and if you have advice for one another, just giving that. And there's certain people that are just really passionate about helping the others out. Of course, some of them have been with us for a while, so they're really confident in their position. So then they're able to help reach out and give everyone else that confidence too.
I love it. I love it. So when you do this culture club, a lot of people, when I say stretch opportunity, they don't always understand what I mean. And to me, that's a perfect example of stretch opportunities, letting people do some other things outside of their typical job description. And those things are things that help the center run. And they're also skills that start moving people towards when a position becomes available. You now have, you know how to do 5 of the tasks that are on the, on the role for an assistant director. So I think,
Yes.
having stretch opportunities for your staff is so important. And it also helps people from feeling stagnant. I think that is another thing. So I think all the time, good leaders are always thinking about how we're multiplying other leaders. And that was a perfect example. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let me see. What else? What else I want to talk about? Well, I mean, leadership today definitely requires both that accountability and compassion that we had talked about earlier in terms of people being held responsible. How do you balance supporting your staff while holding your expectations high?
There are days that can be, tricky, but
No, you don't say any.
just a little bit, some days. But I mean, it can be challenging, but I mean, if you're in the center and you're actively engaged with your staff members and you know them well enough where you see them, in the classroom and you can see that certain face and you have a few minutes, you can just be like, hey, I want to read a story with your kids. You want to take a bathroom break or go get some water or something like that, and then do story time, because that's one of my favorite things to do is just to walk into a classroom. Usually I have a couple of books in my office. I can just whip out the Pout Pout Fish is one of my favorites in my arsenal. And I'll do just a quick story time, go to the bathroom, just cool. We don't even have to talk about what I'm seeing on your face right now. I can see it and I know it, because it's hard. It's a hard job. And so just, kind of doing things like that. Or if you notice something and maybe I'm doing a tour with a parent and so I couldn't give them that opportunity. If I have another, support staff or maybe like my assistant director or something, I'll just be like, hey, can you pop in and check on whoever real quick while I'm finishing up the tour, just to, give them some help. Or maybe I can talk to them later and be like, hey, I walked by earlier. I'm so sorry I couldn't step in, but let's talk about, what was happening. Maybe I can help you prevent that in the future. So just kind of supporting them that way. And you can support them outside the classroom also. There's been a couple of times, especially I have one recently that came in the other day and she just looked frazzled, and she always looks, she's always got like her glasses and her hair's always brushed and she's always like, hey. And she came in this morning and didn't say anything. Her hair was disheveled. And I was like, what's going on? Step in real quick. We'll cover your classroom. Come talk to me. And she was having a really hard time. She just had 2 deaths in the family back to back in the last month. And so, she's struggling with that. And then now she has financial aspects and she's like, I just don't know, what I'm going to do here. So, I just listened to her, just kind of let her go about it. And then, a couple of days later, whenever she was leaving and there was no one else around, I called her into my office, and myself and one of my other colleagues had went and we had gotten her some groceries and, some atypical toiletries and things like that, because I don't want you to have to worry about this kind of thing that you need to survive whenever you're going through something so challenging as losing 2 people so quickly. So, just kind of things like that, like listening to your staff and knowing them and supporting them on every aspect that you can. I mean, you don't have to do stuff like that, but
but we often do.
A resource.
But let's not brush over that, because we often do. In this field, we often do that because we are caring, compassionate people. We're nurturing people. I mean, I've had staff members live with me. I've given them money for cars. I've given them money for rent. I've bought them clothes. Like we all do it, right? Because, It is, as cliche as it sounds, when you are with people for 9 hours a day, year after year, it's very hard to say that you're not connected. And some, people say, oh, don't use the word family. Listen, it is what it is. You can call it what you want. There is a relationship
Right.
there that is much deeper than punching in and punching out. We'll put it that way,
Oh
right? There is,
yeah. I mean,
for sure.
there's staff members that I haven't worked with in
Mm-hmm.
years, and they're at every family function. My
That,
kids know their kids, our husbands are
mm-hmm.
friends. It is part of it. You're right. You spend so much time with these people, and this is a nurturing field to begin with. And like I said, that's who
Yeah.
I'm hiring, is people who have that quality, not the experience. It's having that quality. So I would encourage anybody else. I've had teachers come to me and tell me about other teachers, like, hey, I don't know if they want me to tell you, but maybe
Yeah.
they lost their house. I've had teachers live with me, and things like
Mm-hmm.
that too, because I I just can't sit by and just be like, well, you'll figure it out, I believe in you. I can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. I
Absolutely not.
believe in you, and here's $100. But yeah, I mean, it's important. It's important that that these conversations happen. I mean, honestly, I think we've all experienced teachers who had some version of homelessness. I mean, yeah, there's it's just a lot. It's a lot. It's a very women centered business. So there's a lot of very personal things that they share with you about their families, their struggles that they're going through. So it is more than just being able to provide a good education for children. We're also taking care of the adults in the building in a different way, but
Yeah.
we're also taking care of their well-being. At least if you're a good director, you are. So how do we know when someone needs coaching versus when it's time to have that harder conversation about gifting them off to the next center?
Yeah, the regifting, that's always my favorite thing to say, because it just sounds better. But it's going to depend upon the severity of it, right? Because there are certain things that are a deal breaker. There's no conversation. I'm so sorry, goodbye. And of course, those things are the severe things.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a first conversation or even a second conversation, if it's small stuff like uniforms or coming late, things like that, those kind of things are daily conversations for me. I have a teacher right now that was struggling to wear her uniform, and we sat down and we talked, and I was like, girl, what's happening? It's literally just a polo and some pants. Like, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We can figure it out. Found out she's having issues with her laundry, so guess who is leaving her shirt at the center, and we're washing it with our linens, in the evening for her. And so she just comes in a different shirt, throws it on, and then she's in uniform every day now. So, things like that. So you never know what's happening. It could just be something as simple as that. But, I think it's the small conversations that you need to have every single day for those little issues, so that a way you can make sure that they understand that this is something that is not going to go away. We're going to continue to work on this until this is fixed. And so with those little things, those might be a little bit easier to handle. But there's a certain thing, depending on your regulations and your philosophy as a company, that are going to be, deal breakers immediately. But my rule of thumb with more severe things, or things that are just really a pattern, is usually we're going to talk about it the first time to introduce the conversation. The second time is going to be, hey, you needed to get it together because I need you to function this way. And then that third time is, we're going to talk about it. If it happens again, we're going to dismiss you. So that way we have the set the tone conversation of, here's my expectation and here's how we need to meet it in the future. And then, hey, we're still not meeting the expectations. How can I help you, meet this goal? And then the third one is, I've given you every chance. I'm letting you know that this is the last chance. And then, from there, we just move forward with however you make your decisions.
All right. So let's move on to the families. Families have changed so much in the last 10 years. So many things have changed, even the dynamics. One of the things I think is really interesting and kind of cool, I actually love it, is, have you noticed any difference in who drops off, who picks up, and who comes on tours?
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of like grandmas and things like that, doing our tours and stuff lately, which is really nice, because these parents are getting the support. We get a lot of couples doing the tours now. Whenever used to, it was usually just mom, but now they're actually coming
Yeah.
together, which is nice.
I love, yes. So I would say that is definitely one of the bigger things that I have found is that, and we kind of joke around at one of our locations. We're like, we feel like more dads are dropping off and picking up than moms. But yes, you're right. Like 10 years ago, it'd be once in a while that you would see a dad. Maybe it was an emergency. Mom got stuck, somewhere. But now it's so much more of a mom and dad thing, or I shouldn't use labels like that, but more of a couple is a better way to say it. But definitely more diverse people are part of the equation when they're coming in to do tours. And so we have to think about, are there things that we should be doing as leaders to make sure that everyone also feels included, whether it's the language we use, whether it's how we're writing the family letters. Not everybody's a parent. Sometimes it's a guardian. So we have to be really intentional about just the way that things have changed as well. What's one thing that you've done that helped you strengthen relationships with families?
I'm sorry, it cut out. I didn't hear the last part of that question. I'm
It's okay.
sorry.
Sorry about that. It's okay. It's okay. I'll say it again. What's one thing you've done that has helped strengthen relationships with families?
So one of the biggest things that we try to do is we greet and say farewell to every family. There's always someone, in the front during those high volume times. So we make sure to speak physically to these parents every single day. And then we also have virtual communications, of course, with our app, but then we can text them if that's what they prefer. We do monthly events in-house, and they can just be little things like what we call our curriculum showcase, where they'll have a specific activity that all the classes are doing, and we'll post them up in one of our, it's our make-believe boulevard, but it's a open classroom essentially. And we'll set it up like an art gallery, and the parents are encouraged to come and visit with their kids after hours on maybe a Thursday or something. We'll have small refreshments, or just a couple of weeks ago, we had a foam party where we filled the playground with bubbles and had popsicles, and it was completely free. And we invited the entire community. We had over 400 people reserve spaces, and it was amazing. It was so much fun. I definitely wish I would have brought a set of clothes because I was soaked by the end of it. It was so much fun though. So it was worth it. But doing those little those monthly events with them, and just inviting them into the center to spend time with you and all of your staff members, really shows them that transparency. It shows them that you really care about their family and their child's education, and them understanding what that means. And so those kind of little things really make a difference on the day to day.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think it's not that also, when you bring everybody together, it also, I feel like, is a morale booster for your team. Your team really do enjoy those interactions as well, especially that they're much more, I don't use the word loose, but they're more organic, and you can just get to meet everybody and talk to everybody, and not have to be one eye on the classroom while you're having a conversation with a parent. You can just be fully present. All right, as we start to wrap up, if you could sit down with yourself on your very first day as a director, what advice would you give yourself?
I think one of the biggest things is to, first of all, not be so critical of myself, because there's so much heart in the job. It's hard not to take certain things personally sometimes. And so you have to step back and think about it. But I think that would be the biggest one. And make sure that you set time out for yourself and your family. Because in the beginning, I would be there, 12, 13 hours, and then also be there on the weekend and, things like that, especially when I was working for like the mom and pops where I'm like, well, it's not going to get done if I don't get this done, and like my kids would come up there and help me too. But, there's other things that we could be doing instead. Those two things I think would be the biggest pieces of advice that I would give myself in the beginning for sure.
I think that is probably the best piece of advice that anybody could ever tell a director. Listen, that is the most honest, the most truthful statement I think I've ever heard on this podcast. Make sure you do not do that. I don't know anybody who works at a mom and pop, and I own a mom and pop that has not done that. I don't know anybody who hasn't done that. I don't know anybody who said it's 5:30, bye, I got to go, and shut everything down. No, not in year 1 or year 2 or year 5. Maybe by the time you got to year 10, you're like, I'm out, bye. The crayons will get fixed tomorrow. But yeah, that's so true. All right, so let's have a little fun before we wrap up. We're going to do a little game called Rapid Fire here. Are you ready? All right.
Maybe.
It's going to be hard-hitting questions. Here we go. Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
Favorite kind of ice cream?
It's actually a cherry limeade sorbet from Brahms.
Okay. One leadership book everyone should read?
The 5-Step Rule from Mel Robbins.
Okay. Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Favorite children's book to read out loud besides Pout Pout Fish?
Beside that one, oh gosh. Probably Brown Bear.
Okay. One word your team would use to describe your leadership?
Supportive.
Oh, I like it. Finish this sentence. The future of early childhood leadership is blank.
Bright.
Ooh, that's a good one. All right, Annie. Thank you so much for joining me today. I think conversations like this are exactly why I love being the host of this podcast, exactly why I love people who tune in, exactly why I think that everybody should be on this mic. My mic is your mic. So guys, I hope that you took 1 or 2 amazing tips that Annie left for you today. If you only leave with one, it's don't burn yourself out and make sure that your family is a priority. It's important, but at the end of the day, nothing is more important than your family. So that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Childcare Director's Chair, where we believe leaders aren't born, they're grown. If something sparked for you today, share it, shout it out, or pass it along to the next bold changemaker in childcare. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with Erica Saccoccio for more real talk leadership tools and a whole lot of inspiration. Until next time, lead with heart, grow with fire, and always remember, the chair is yours. Now own it.